My cousin attempted to hide me during her perfect wedding because of my crutches, but her father's reaction changed everything. I never imagined my own relative would want to conceal me as if I were a family shame, yet there I was, sobbing as I stood with my crutches reading the most heartbreaking text I had ever received. Be me, 25-year-old Bella, sitting in my wheelchair, tears streaming down my face, reading the most heartbreaking message I've ever received. My own sister trying to hide me away on her wedding day. Like some shameful family secret, Olivia, my 28-year-old sister, the same one who promised to always protect me, now asking me to stay home from her wedding because my wheelchair might ruin the aesthetic of her photos. The worst part? This nightmare was just beginning. None of us could have predicted how her in-laws would turn everything upside down. Let me tell you how I got here. Until 2 years ago, I was living my dream as a dance instructor. Had plans to open my own studio in Los Angeles. That all changed one foggy December night. Some drunk asshole decided to run a red light. I survived. My legs didn't get the memo. Ended up paralyzed from the waist down. Life switched from pirouettes to wheelchair ramps real quick. Cast of characters you need to know. Olivia, my sister, former protective older sibling turned bridezilla. Nathan, her 30-year-old fiancé, trust fund kid working in luxury yacht sales, more concerned with appearances than actual human feelings. His parents, Vincent, 62, and Eleanor, 56, seemed like typical wealthy snobs at first. Boy, was I wrong about them. Before all this wedding drama exploded, Olivia and I were inseparable growing up. She was my biggest cheerleader, never missed a single dance recital, would help me practice routines in our backyard, always defended me from middle school bullies. After my accident, she was there through everything. Every grueling physical therapy session, every tear-filled night, every small victory. That's what makes her recent behavior so shocking. It's like she became a completely different person. Everything changed when she got engaged to Nathan. The engagement party was when I first noticed something was wrong. Olivia arranged it at some fancy Beverly Hills country club. Place barely had wheelchair access. Dad had to carry me up several steps just to reach the main entrance. Not exactly dignified. During family photos, things got weird. Olivia kept positioning me at strange angles, trying to hide my wheelchair behind other relatives. I tried to brush it off. Thought maybe she was just stressed about making everything perfect. Wish I had seen the red flags for what they were. Things got worse as wedding planning kicked into high gear. She started excluding me from dress fittings. Kept skipping venue tours with me. Always had some bullshit excuse about accessibility issues. When I offered to help with wedding planning, hoping to keep our close bond, she'd either dodge my calls or send back short, dismissive texts. My sister, who used to share every detail of her life with me, was slowly pushing me away. I couldn't understand why. Then came that message, the one that would set off a chain of events. None of us saw coming. Olivia wanted to meet for coffee. Said she needed to discuss something important about the wedding. My heart actually lifted. Thought maybe she was finally ready to include me in the planning. Maybe even wanted me to be her maid of honor. God, I was so naive. Looking back now, I wish I'd never agreed to that meeting. But then again, if I hadn't shown up, I never would have witnessed the incredible turn of events that followed, or discovered who my true allies were in this family drama. You need to understand something first. Just how much this wedding meant to Olivia. How far she was willing to go for her perfect day, even if it meant breaking her little sister's heart. That coffee shop meeting will forever be burned into my memory. The moment I realized how deeply status and appearances can corrupt even the strongest family bonds. The fall sun was streaming through the windows, casting this warm glow that felt mockingly cheerful. Given what was about to unfold, Olivia was already there when I arrived, fidgeting with her massive engagement ring, a family heirloom from Nathan's grandmother, something she never got tired of mentioning. The moment I saw her face, I knew something was wrong. My sister, usually so composed and confident, couldn't even meet my eyes. Instead, she stared into her untouched vanilla latte, like it held the answers to some impossible dilemma. Her perfectly manicured fingers trembled slightly as she pushed a wedding invitation across the table, an invitation that, to my growing horror, wasn't meant for me. What followed was pure torture, a carefully rehearsed speech about wedding aesthetics, and maintaining a certain image for Nathan's family connections. Each word felt like a physical blow. Olivia explained in this weirdly detached way, the kind people use when they're trying to distance themselves. from their own cruelty, how Nathan's family had concerns about how a wheelchair would look in their formal wedding photos. She actually suggested I could attend the ceremony remotely, via live stream, like watching my own sister's wedding through a screen, would somehow be an acceptable compromise. But here's what really twisted the knife. Olivia revealed that Nathan's parents had promised them something, a substantial down payment on their dream house in Pacific Palisades, but only if the wedding met their expectations. The implication was crystal clear. Their financial support depended on the wedding looking perfect, and apparently, a wheelchair-bound sister didn't fit that picture. I sat there, my hands gripping my wheelchair's armrests so tight, my knuckles turned white. While Olivia continued to rationalize her betrayal, she talked about how this was her one special day, how she'd been dreaming about this wedding since we were little girls, playing dress-up in our mother's clothes. The worst part? She actually tried to frame it like she was doing me a favor, suggesting I would be more comfortable watching from home, where I wouldn't have to worry about accessibility issues. Like she was being considerate. My mind flashed back to all those nights, her sitting by my hospital bed after the accident, promising me nothing would ever change between us. How she'd sworn that my disability wouldn't define me, that she'd always be there to support me. Now, 2 years later, she was effectively uninviting me from her wedding, because my wheelchair might clash with her color scheme. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip that fancy coffee table, throw her overpriced latte in her face. But instead, I did something that seemed to shock her even more. I laughed. Not a happy laugh. It was the kind that comes when something is so absurd, so painfully ridiculous, that your brain doesn't know how else to process it. Then I told her something. Something that made all the color drain from her perfectly made-up face. I reminded her about our late grandmother's vintage pearl necklace. The something old she was planning to wear at her wedding was actually left to me in the will. Olivia had been borrowing it for the past year. I'd been happy to let her keep it. Because, well, that's what sisters do. But now I wanted it back. The look of panic that flashed across her face was almost satisfying. That necklace was central to her wedding aesthetic. Featured in all her bridal magazine submissions, plastered all over her Pinterest boards. She'd been bragging about its history to Nathan's family, weaving it into her carefully crafted image of old money elegance. What happened next would change everything, would not only change Olivia's perfect wedding plans, but would reveal the true colors of everyone involved. Trust me, some of those colors were far from the elegant palette my sister had chosen for her special day. Next few days were pure chaos. Unanswered calls, passive-aggressive family, text messages everywhere. Olivia had spun quite a tale to our parents about my unreasonable behavior regarding grandmother's necklace. But then something unexpected happened. That evening, after our coffee shop confrontation, I received an email from Eleanor, Nathan's mother. My finger hovered over the delete button, assumed it would be full of polite society venom about maintaining their family's reputation. Instead, what I read made my hand shake. Eleanor requested a private meeting at her home, explicitly stated that Nathan and Olivia shouldn't know about it. Against my better judgment, and maybe driven by a perverse curiosity about what fresh humiliation awaited me, I agreed. The next afternoon, found myself being wheeled up a custom-installed ramp at the entrance of their Bel Air mansion. Yes, you read that right. They had a ramp, a beautifully designed one, perfectly integrated, looked like it had been part of the original architecture. My first thought was, must be for deliveries. But Eleanor's next words stopped my thoughts cold. She revealed that her own mother had spent the last decade of her life in a wheelchair due to MS. The ramp was installed during that time. Eleanor had refused to remove it after her passing, despite numerous suggestions from their social circle about property values and curb appeal. As she served green tea in their sunroom, Eleanor's carefully maintained socialite facade cracked, revealing something raw and genuine underneath. That's when she dropped the first bombshell. She had no idea about Olivia's plan to exclude me from the wedding. In fact, she'd been specifically working with their wedding planner to ensure every venue they considered was fully accessible. The second revelation hit even harder. The supposed house down payment contingency Olivia had mentioned, it was a complete fabrication. My mind reeled as Eleanor continued. She and Vincent had indeed offered to help, with a house down payment, but it was a freely given wedding gift. No strings attached. They'd never even hinted at any conditions. About the wedding's appearance, as Eleanor spoke, her perfectly composed expression crumbled slightly, revealing genuine distress at how her future daughter-in-law had weaponized their gift to manipulate her own sister. But the real punch came when Eleanor mentioned the wedding venue's bridal suite. She had personally overseen its renovation to ensure it would be wheelchair accessible. Wanting to surprise me, since Olivia had mentioned how close we were, the irony was almost too much to bear. While my sister was plotting to exclude me, her future mother-in-law was literally remodeling spaces to include me. Eleanor's next words would change everything. She pulled out her phone, showed me a series of texts between Nathan and Olivia, accidentally sent to the family group chat. Instead of their private conversation, my blood ran cold as I read their casual discussion about how to handle the wheelchair situation. Nathan suggested they could Photoshop out the chair in some photos if needed. Olivia's response was even worse. She was already planning to tell guests I was too ill to attend. As I sat there processing this betrayal, Eleanor made an unexpected offer, one that would throw Olivia's carefully orchestrated plans into complete chaos. But before I could even respond, Vincent burst into the room, his face ashen. He had just received some information about Nathan. That would make the wheelchair drama seem like a minor footnote in comparison. Looking back now, I realized that afternoon tea with Eleanor marked the moment everything started unraveling. Olivia's perfect wedding facade was about to crack, and the truth behind Nathan's polished exterior was going to leave everyone questioning who the real villains were in this story. Vincent's revelation about Nathan felt like watching a carefully constructed house of cards collapse in slow motion. As he paced the sunroom, his usual commanding presence diminished by visible distress. He revealed that Nathan had been orchestrating an elaborate fraud scheme through his yacht sales. He'd been taking deposits for luxury vessels that didn't exist, using the money to maintain his facade of wealth and success. The house he'd promised Olivia? It was part of a development project that existed only on paper. The weight of this truth settled over the room like a heavy fog. Eleanor's hands trembled as she set down her teacup, the delicate china making a soft, discordant sound. Against its saucer, the woman who had shown me such unexpected kindness now faced her own devastating reality. Her son was not just complicit in excluding a disabled sister-in-law, he was a criminal whose carefully constructed world was about to implode. In that moment, Eleanor's earlier offer took on new significance. She had suggested that instead of staying home, I should arrive at the wedding early, before the other guests, help her arrange a surprise celebration of mine and Olivia's childhood dance performances. She'd found videos of our recitals, planned to project them during the reception. The irony was suffocating. While Olivia plotted to hide my wheelchair, Eleanor had been working to celebrate the very thing that had led to my current condition, my love of dance. But now, with Vincent's revelation hanging in the air, that surprise felt like a footnote. In a much larger tragedy, Eleanor's next words showed me where Olivia had inherited her flair for dramatic timing. She had already contacted the FBI about Nathan's schemes, driven by her own discovery of irregularities in the family's charitable foundation, which Nathan had been helping to manage. The investigation was set to conclude within days, just before the wedding. As I sat there, processing these layers of deception, my phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. My sister, oblivious to the storm about to break, was demanding grandmother's necklace back. Her message was a masterpiece of emotional manipulation, reminiscing about how grandmother would have wanted her to wear it on her wedding day, how she had already planned her entire look around it. Each word felt hollow now. Knowing what I knew about her fiancé, about her lies regarding Eleanor and Vincent's conditions, about her own calculated exclusion of me, that's when Eleanor made a second offer, one that left me breathless. She reached into an antique jewelry box and pulled out a familiar-looking pearl necklace, one identical to my grandmother's. It had belonged to her own mother, she explained. She'd been planning to give it to Olivia as a wedding gift. Now she suggested a different plan, one that would require perfect timing and a bit of theatrical flair. Her eyes held a mixture of sadness and determination. As she outlined her idea, as I considered Eleanor's suggestion, I realized that the next few days would either heal the rift between Olivia and me or shatter our relationship beyond repair. The weight of multiple secrets pressed against my chest. Nathan's fraud, Eleanor's surprise videos, the truth about the house down payment, and now this new plan involving the pearl necklaces. Each one felt like a ticking time bomb. I knew that when they finally exploded, nothing would ever be the same. But before any of these revelations could come to light, Olivia unleashed her own devastating salvo. A series of messages appeared in our family group chat that would force my hand and set in motion a chain of events even Eleanor hadn't anticipated. As I read my sister's words, I realized that sometimes the cruelest cuts come from those closest to us. She painted a picture of me as a bitter, jealous sister, unable to celebrate her happiness. Because of my own tragedy, the words she used, words that could only have come from someone who knew exactly where my emotional wounds lay, cut deeper than any stranger's cruelty ever could. She claimed I was using grandmother's necklace as a weapon, weaponizing my disability to gain sympathy, trying to make her wedding about my limitations. The most painful part? She shared childhood photos of us dancing together, using them to illustrate how far I'd fallen from the supportive sister I used to be. Each image felt like a deliberate reminder of everything I had lost that foggy December night. The final photo was from her engagement party, the one where she'd tried to hide my wheelchair. She cropped it to show only her beaming face next to Nathan, with a caption about how some people choose to celebrate love, while others wallow in their misfortunes. Sitting in Eleanor's sunroom, watching these messages appear in real time, I felt an odd sense of calm descend over me. It was the kind of stillness that comes when you finally see something clearly. For the first time, the sister I'd known, the one who held my hand through physical therapy, who promised nothing would change, that person was gone. In her place was someone I barely recognized, someone who would exploit my deepest vulnerabilities. For the sake of her perfect wedding narrative, Eleanor's face had gone pale. As she read the messages over my shoulder, the pearl necklace in her hand, so similar to my grandmother's, caught the afternoon light, sending prism-like reflections across the room. In that moment, something shifted in her expression. The society matron's careful mask slipped completely, revealing the fierce protectiveness of a mother who had watched her own parents struggle with disability. That's when she shared the final piece of information that would change everything. The FBI wasn't just investigating Nathan's yacht sales fraud. They had evidence that Olivia was actively involved in the scheme. Her dream house obsession wasn't just about status. She had been helping Nathan lure in potential investors through her social media influence. Those perfectly curated Instagram posts about their future home, they were part of an elaborate scam to attract more victims. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Every time Olivia had excluded me from wedding planning, every venue that was supposedly inaccessible, every excuse about keeping things intimate. It wasn't just about hiding my wheelchair. She'd been keeping me away because she knew I'd ask questions. I'd worked in event planning before my accident, would have noticed the discrepancies in their venue contracts, spotted the red flags in their housing plans. As this truth settled over me, my phone buzzed again. This time a private message from Olivia, an attempt at reconciliation that read more like a threat. She offered a compromise. I could attend the wedding, but only if I agreed to stay in the back row during the ceremony and skip the formal photos. She ended with a reminder that grandmother's necklace was meant to be worn by a bride. Looking at Eleanor's identical pearls, then at the evidence of fraud glowing on Vincent's tablet, I made a decision that would set in motion the final act of this family drama. Sometimes I realized the kindest thing you can do for someone you love is to stop protecting them from the consequences of their own actions. I picked up my phone and began typing a response to Olivia's message. But first, I had to make a call, one that would ensure every guest at her dream wedding would witness a very different kind of surprise than the one she was planning. The week before the wedding unfolded, like a carefully choreographed dance of deception, Olivia, still unaware of what I knew, escalated her emotional warfare through a series of increasingly desperate attempts to secure grandmother's necklace. Each message she sent revealed another layer of the stranger she'd become, someone who viewed family heirlooms as props in her carefully curated life story. Rather than symbols of our shared history, I found myself that evening examining old photos in my apartment, tracing the line of those pearls around grandmother's neck. In various family celebrations, there was one particular image that caught my attention. Olivia and me at grandmother's last birthday. Both of us draped in her jewelry, playing dress up like we were still children. The pearls had gleamed then, with the warm light of family love, not the cold sparkle of social ambition they'd come to represent in Olivia's Instagram posts. Eleanor's plan was elegant in its simplicity. Her mother's pearl necklace, the one identical to grandmother's, would become the instrument of truth. She suggested I return the necklace to Olivia, letting her believe she'd won this small battle. The twist? It would be Eleanor's necklace, not grandmother's, that Olivia would wear down the aisle. The real family heirloom would remain safely in my possession, its absence a silent testimony to the choices Olivia had made. But as I sat there in my wheelchair that evening, grandmother's actual necklace cool against my palm, I realized this wasn't just about jewelry anymore. Each pearl felt weighted with memories of the sister I'd lost. Not to my accident, but to the corrupting influence of status and greed. The Olivia who had once sworn to always protect me had instead chosen to protect a facade, a life built on lies and fraud. Vincent's evidence of Olivia's involvement in Nathan's schemes was damning. Spreadsheets of investor contacts she'd cultivated through her social media, bank transfers disguised as wedding planning expenses, meticulously documented meetings with potential victims, all of it painted a picture of someone I barely recognized, the sister who had once helped me relearn how to navigate my daily life, had been simultaneously navigating a web of financial deceit. The next morning brought another unexpected twist. A visit from Nathan's younger sister, Claire, 22. She arrived at my apartment in tears. Clutching a folder of documents, she discovered that Nathan had embezzled most of her trust fund through his fraudulent company, using her inheritance to fund the lavish lifestyle that had attracted Olivia in the first place. The pieces clicked into place. Olivia's obsession with the perfect wedding wasn't just about social media aesthetics. It was about maintaining the illusion of legitimate wealth that kept their scheme running. As Claire and I talked, sharing our respective betrayals, a new plan began to form. Eleanor's pearl necklace swap was elegant, but perhaps too subtle for the magnitude of deception we were facing. The truth needed to be as public as Olivia's attempts to shame me had been. With Claire's help, I began to craft a response that would ensure every wedding guest would understand exactly why. A wheelchair at the ceremony was the least of Olivia's concerns. That evening, I finally replied to Olivia's messages in the family group chat. My response was simple. A single photo of me wearing grandmother's necklace, taken the day of my accident. I was in my dance studio, the pearls gleaming against my leotard, hours before the drunk driver changed everything. With it, I sent a brief message that I knew would keep Olivia awake all night. Looking forward to the wedding, I have a surprise that I think will leave everyone speechless. What Olivia didn't know was that while she'd been trying to minimize my presence at her wedding, I'd been working with Eleanor and Claire to choreograph a very different kind of performance, one that would ensure every guest understood the true cost of her perfect day. As I set my phone down, the weight of grandmother's real pearls against my neck felt like armor, protecting me for the battle to come. The morning of Olivia's wedding dawned with a kind of pristine clarity that usually only exists in wedding magazines. I arrived early, just as Eleanor had originally planned, but for entirely different reasons now. My wheelchair glided smoothly over the venue's accessible pathways, the ones Olivia had claimed didn't exist, while Eleanor's pearl necklace rested in a velvet box on my lap. The real family heirloom remained at home, safely stored away from the chaos about to unfold. The bridal suite was a flurry of activity. When I entered, Olivia's face, half done with makeup, flickered through a series of expressions: shock, anger, calculation, and finally, a brutal attempt at sisterly warmth. Her eyes fixed immediately on the velvet box in my lap. I watched her shoulders relax slightly, assuming she'd won our small war over grandmother's necklace. It's strange how even in moments of profound deception, we can still read our siblings like books we've memorized by heart. What happened next unfolded. With the precision of a dance recital, we'd rehearsed our entire lives for. As Olivia reached for the velvet box, Claire appeared in the doorway, accompanied by 2 FBI agents. The timing was deliberate. Olivia's hands were just closing, around Eleanor's pearls. As the agents began reading her rights, the look of confusion on her face, as she glanced between the necklace and the agents, would have been almost comical. If it weren't so heartbreaking, the evidence Claire had provided proved instrumental. Every fraudulent transaction, every manipulated social media post, every fake yacht listing had created a paper trail that led directly back to both Olivia and Nathan. The dream house they promised their investors was just the tip of the iceberg. They'd been running their scheme for years, using Olivia's social media influence to lure in victims. While Nathan handled the financial manipulation, Eleanor appeared behind me, her presence a quiet pillar of strength. She watched without flinching as her son was led away in handcuffs from his dressing room, his perfectly tailored Armani tuxedo, a final costume. In his performance of wealth and success, the guests arriving to celebrate what they thought would be a fairy tale wedding instead became witnesses to the unraveling of an elaborate fraud. In the chaos that followed, I found myself facing Olivia one last time. Her makeup was streaked with tears, her carefully curated facade crumbling. As rapidly as her future plans, she asked me in a voice I barely recognized why I couldn't have waited just one more day, giving her just these few hours of perfect happiness before everything fell apart. My response was simple. I showed her the photograph from grandmother's last birthday, the one where we were both draped in her jewelry, innocent and loving. That's when I revealed the final truth. The necklace she was holding wasn't grandmother's at all. Eleanor stepped forward, gently explaining the significance of her own mother's pearls and how she'd hoped they would symbolize a new chapter of family unity. Instead, they had become a testament to how far Olivia had strayed. From the sister I once knew, the wedding guests departed quietly, their whispers a gentle rustle of shock and sympathy. Some stopped to offer awkward condolences, as if attending a funeral, rather than a wedding. In a way, perhaps they were the death of an illusion, the end of a carefully constructed life. As I sat in the empty venue, surrounded by the elaborate decorations that would never serve their intended purpose, I felt an unexpected sense of peace. The wheelchair Olivia had tried so hard to hide had become the least remarkable thing about this day. The sister who had once promised to protect me had needed protection from herself, and somehow I had found the strength to provide it, even knowing it would break both our hearts. Eleanor's hand rested gently on my shoulder as we watched the sun set through the venue's windows. The real pearl necklace, grandmother's legacy, waited for me at home, its history and meaning preserved from being tainted by fraud and deception. Sometimes I realized true family is found not in the people we were born to, but in those who choose to stand beside us when the perfect facade crumbles, revealing the messy, complicated truth underneath. My wheelchair, once a symbol of what I'd lost, had become the seat from which I found the courage to protect not just myself, but everyone Olivia and Nathan had planned to deceive. In trying to hide my disability, Olivia had revealed a far more profound handicap, one of character and conscience. And in the end, it wasn't the wheelchair that ruined her dream wedding. It was the lie she'd chosen to build that dream upon.